We're supposed to talk about successful campaigns, and I think the first rule about successful campaigns is that they have to be campaigns. And let me explain. In order to judge the success of our action, we have to set out goals. And we have to set out achievable goals, measurable goals, short-term goals, long-term goals. We have to do some strategic thinking. And that's the basic idea that lies behind starting a campaign. So my claim is that whenever you start a campaign, it can be victorious and successful. Because once you start a campaign, if your goals are achievable and measurable, you will reach something. And then you declare victory when you have a successful campaign. The importance of having successful campaigns is that it can change completely the image of our movement, both from within and from without. It's very different to be part of a successful movement than to be part of the Palestine movement that has been working for so many decades, doing the same thing, and things on the ground are getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm going to tell you today that the BDS movement is a very, very successful movement. And it's extremely refreshing because we're not used to being successful. So we also need to learn how to enjoy being successful. Yes, and how to tell activists join us because we are being successful. Something really great is happening. We celebrate. We have to learn how to celebrate. And I want to tell you about two of the many different global campaigns that focus on corporations. And the focus on corporations is not the same as focusing on a product. And it's not the same as focusing on an event that happens and you want to organize around. Focusing on a global corporation means taking the time to do that, doing the research to understand these corporations, let's say, difficulties, or where they are more sensitive to public pressure, who are their investors, what are their main products, what are their main markets. You have to do a lot of strategic thinking and also analyze where is your role in that. Maybe you just work out of a very small group somewhere, but you can join in on a global campaign that can really benefit from your doing something very small somewhere else in the world. So one such campaign, anybody who heard me speak before heard me speak about it, is a campaign against a company called Veolia, which is a French multinational. And they have a lot of business in the US. I keep hearing from people in Europe, we've never heard about Veolia. Listen, Veolia is here. They're doing a lot of work, and their main clients are local municipalities. They provide transportation services, waste disposal services, and water services. That's a good thing that their clients are municipalities because it helps us organize on a local level. It's easy for us to organize on a local level, in your campus, in your city, in your town. And they provide the same services, water, actually water no, but transportation and waste disposal to settlements in the occupied West Bank. That's it. They do that with the light rail project that they were hired to operate in Jerusalem, connecting Jerusalem to settlements around it. And they are providing waste disposal services to a dump that they operate in the occupied Jordan Valley. The campaign started immediately after the call for BDS that Nancy mentioned in 2005. And I have a list here of all the victories of this campaign because I cannot remember it by heart anymore. It's just too long. First victory was already in November 2006 when a Dutch bank decided to divest from this company. And then I have victories from towns all around Europe, Sandwell, UK, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, South Africa, Ireland, France, Australia. Cities all around the world have managed to either stop contracts with Veolia or not give them new contracts when they were up for renewal. That includes the Stockholm Underground, it includes the Melbourne Light Rail Transit, the Bordeaux Urban Network, the Galway Underground in Ireland. Big contracts. The company has lost something in the vicinity of $15 billion in contracts since then. None of these contracts were targeted in the US, and we have checked, they have a lot of contracts in the US. It has been extremely successful also because if you find out that your city or your campus does not have a contract with Veolia, you can still do something about it. You can declare yourselves Veolia free. This is in fact much easier than trying to work with an existing contract. So Oslo is Veolia free. I have another few companies, cities around the world that are Veolia free. I had a list here. It's really hard to remember, but if you go on BDS movement.net, you can see the list of all these successes. Veolia has decided to leave the light rail project in Jerusalem. And for the last year and a half, they've been trying to sell the contract to somebody else. No other transnational wanted it. They had to give the contract away to an Israeli company that didn't really stand up to the contract. And they're trying to run away from it. This is a big victory. It's not over yet because they still operate buses and the dump in the West Bank. So there is still time for us to join in and have some victories of our own. This is an example of setting out goals. In this case, I think the goal is not for them to leave so quickly because it is such a good target internationally that we want them to stay there for a little while longer and help us build this global movement. Let me tell you one other example of a victory, just because it just happened. It's brand new. So this is news from last week, last Friday, sorry, in Belgium. Unfortunately, this Belgian bank that was targeted, I don't think they have any business here. So this is not a call for action, unlike Veolia. But it's such great news that I think all of us should celebrate. So tonight, busboys and poets, we're going to celebrate, everybody's invited. The story is about a bank. The bank is called Dexia. It's a Franco-Belgian bank. And 2 years ago, they were bailed out by the Belgian...
Can you tell us how to spell that?
D-E-X-I-A, Dexia. Another company that has as its main clients local municipalities. They provide financial services to local municipalities. Anyhow, 2 years ago, the bank was bailed out by the French, Belgian, and Luxembourg governments because there was a financial crisis. I don't know if you remember that, something like that. So that was great news. There were some activists in Belgium from a group called Intal, that's the name of the group, so it's a solidarity group, and they contacted us in Israel in my project called Who Profits from the Occupation. We provide information services and research services for campaigns all around the world. They contacted us and they said, well, you know, the bank is now a governmental bank. It used to be private. We know they have business in Israel. Do you know if they have any business in the settlements? Now, why did they ask about settlements? Because settlements are illegal according to international law. Because settlements are contrary to many European countries' own policies and to the US foreign policy. Because settlements are an easy target. And also because many international corporations are signed on to the UN Global Compact, which makes them, they have to preserve human rights and international law. They are signed on to it. So they can be sued in a court when they break that law. So settlements are an important tool for us. We should look for that. So just the story. They called us and they said, do they have any settlement business? We said, we don't know. We don't know, we'll check, we don't know. And it took us a very long time to find the proof that they do provide long-term loans to settlements, with the collateral being the continuous existence of the settlement and the future revenues of the settlement. So they really have a stake in it. And the way we found out was really very silly. It was because they were summoned to the Israeli parliament, to the Knesset, when the settlers thought that they didn't give them a loan somewhere. So they were summoned to the parliament in order to testify why do they discriminate against settlements. And the Israeli branch CEO stood in the Knesset, in the committee, and he said, no, of course not, we don't discriminate against settlements. We gave long-term loans to these and that, and then he gave the whole list. So we could launch a campaign in Belgium, thanks to him. And this campaign started from nothing. I mean, this was a leafleting campaign. They leafleted in the entrance to branches, and they started trying to get meetings with local municipalities and mayors that use the services of this bank and their clients, educating them about international law, about settlements, about what it means. And then they introduced a shareholder resolution last year, asking the bank to withdraw from all settlement activity. And the president of the bank, Jean-Luc Dehaene, announced that the bank will no longer give loans to settlements beyond what they already gave. That's it. It doesn't include Jerusalem, blah, 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 but, you know, good faith. The Belgian group came back to Who Profits and said, are they telling the truth? So this time we did some better research and we found the proof that they were lying. Now that was enough, because once it was proven that they were lying, and also the Israeli press caught on to it and started saying, it's impossible, this bank will provide services in Israel, but discriminate against settlements? Discrimination language here is funny. Anyhow, why am I telling you this whole long story, boring story about loans and banks? Because last week was another shareholder meeting of the bank in Belgium. And of the 4-hour meeting of the shareholder meeting last Friday, an hour and a half was dedicated to proxies coming up and asking questions about the bank's involvement in Palestine and about what are they going to do about it. And the president of the bank, that was already caught in a lie once, announced that they were going to sell their Israeli branch, the Israeli subsidiary, Dexia Israel, and they're going to do it in a haste. They're going to do it by this summer. And when they were confronted about it and said, by one of our representatives said to them, but you know, you're selling the branch, meaning you're still making profit. What about all the harm that you have contributed to? You're going to take the money and leave. So the president said, well, we are going to sell it at a loss because we have announced that we are going to sell it and we are going to sell it by this summer, so we have our restricted time. We're going to lose money on that. But even then, we are thinking of taking all the money from the sale and putting it into social projects in Palestine. Now, this is an amazing precedent. An amazing precedent. It got very front headlines news in Israel, in the economic press in Israel. A big international bank is divesting from Israel. No, this is amazing. And I just want to say one last word about this campaign, which is why I think they had to leave by this summer. I just thought about it. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but this is my theory. There's a new law on the desk of the Knesset, which is the anti-BDS law. I don't know if you heard about it or not. It is not law yet, but the Knesset has just returned from recess, unfortunately for all of us. We like it when they are on vacation. And they have set a date. July 27th is when they are going to pass this new law, the anti-BDS law. And the wording of this law might change more or less because it's not yet law. They're still working on it, but it's pretty final, the version that I have here. And they've added a new section to the draft that we saw before. And the new section is about corporations that are active in Israel, but do not provide services to some parts of the country or participate in boycotts against some part of the country. In other words, do not provide services in settlements. This is what it means. And it says that any corporation that participates in such a boycott will be banned from governmental contracts. Now, for a bank like Dexia, this is impossible. They won't be able to work in Israel. All of their work is through contracts with the government. So they're cutting their losses and running. But what it means for us, okay, I threw that law, it's over. What it means for us is that the state of Israel does not allow anymore for partial boycotts. Think about it. No corporations can continue working in Israel while not being active in the settlements. Now think about that as a tool for us for calling for total divestment. Thank you.